Good afternoon and welcome back to another ironic introduction to another video. Today I want to talk about free-to-play shifts in Marvel Contest of Champions. Now this is something that's actually been happening over time, over the last couple of months. I just wanted to actually talk about it because I've been quick to jump on pay-to-play shifts or things that I felt were very heavily pay-to-win mechanics. And so I have noticed a few things in the game that have been very good for the free-to-play player. And I thought it was about time I, at least talked about it. So the first one is the Supreme Solo Crystals. Now, at first, I wasn't like super intrigued by these. I thought they had a lot of potential. But after I opened some up, and I have 28 here just to kind of give a small sample size here as just like a point of reference. But this is 28 crystals. It doesn't take that long to build up this many crystals. As you can see here, I got 3 10% attack boosts. I got a 20% champion boost. 4 15% health boosts, 4 10% champion boosts, and that's a really sizable amount of boosts, and even a 20% boost and like 15% attack boost, like these are really powerful. Actually, sorry, only 10% this time around. I've gotten 15% from here though, and this is a big deal. That is a lot of boosts in a very easy and accessible method, and in a less so easy and accessible method but still very relevant is the new milestone of 15% attack boosts on the 7-hour event. Now, I'll be frank, at first I thought it was kind of frustrating that it was only 15% attack boosts, but from what I've seen on the solo crystals, it's actually more common to get the champion boost and the health boosts, so having that 15% in the 7-hour thing, I think is like a really good way they balanced it. And the reality of that is that champion boosts are the best, because they do health and attack, so having that primarily in the solo crystals is really nice from an overall player perspective. And then health boosts are a little less valuable because having more health is nice, it makes you tankier, but in reality you want to hit the opponent and kill them faster. That's going to be more valuable. And so the most valuable one is something that you actively have to go out and get, and they're actually relatively reasonable to obtain. Now, you're not going to get every 7-hour solo event unless you're really pushing for it, but a lot of them are just like skill combat, mystic combat, mystic advancement, and you just timing your resources, timing your time spent in the game, or if you're grinding arena, and most free-to-play players should be grinding arena if you're trying to keep up, at least you're or concerned about that free-to-play versus pay-to-win mechanic and state of the game, because if you're not grinding a ton of arena as a free-to-play player, you shouldn't even consider it. You should just play the game at your own pace. But if you're trying to keep up, it's not hard to just shift where you allocate your time a little bit to get a couple extra boosts, a little bit of extra rewards. And this is massive. This is really great. Boosts are incredibly essential to keeping up in Alliance War, and while it is not the 30% and the 20% attack boosts, this is still a substantial quantity of boosts that can really help a free-to-play player out. And maybe it won't help you keep up in Masters, but it might help alleviate some of the cost. But it will also make it so you can keep up more in like P2, P1, and the likes. And I think that's a really big deal. So on another note that is also subtle power creep, and I just wanted to mention that, is anytime there's more rewards, anytime there's access to higher boosts or more resources, it's a power creep on the game. So now with easy access to these 10% and these 20%, content is no longer about juggling where do I use my boosts, but even like more casual players or people who aren't pushing as hard in Alliance War now have access to a lot more boosts to run static content with, and that is a big deal because suddenly everybody's rosters is 10 to 40% bigger and beefier and hard hitting, and it really trivializes or makes content easier in the long run. So that is kind of like a little aside that I wanted to mention because it is really important to notice. Now, I don't think it's the biggest of deals at the moment, but it is something we should keep our eyes on, especially as we enter 6-star rank 3 metas in the end game. The next thing I want to talk about are variants. Now, variants are not something they come out with crazy frequently, but it is something that Kabam has acknowledged that they want to make more of, and they want to actively seek out because they know this is something that players really enjoy. And now variant 1, not so much, and variant 2, mostly, but variants 3, 4, and 5 are incredibly accessible. And now I do know that the accessibility there varies based on your roster, but if they keep this trend where these newer variants are accessible to players, and even if it becomes like, oh, you need to do 3 or 4 first because those are the most accessible, and then you do 5 and 6 later, like, just the quantity of rewards in here is amazing, especially for progressing players. We see rank 5 materials, potentially rank 6 materials, and like this shift here just on the completion run where they've added the tier 5 basics instead of like just small quantities of tier 5 basic. This is massive, right? Like, just the difference in rank up materials here is insane, and they've shifted from small quantities to larger quantities of tier 5 basic, and from 5-star crystals to 5-star hero crystals, which just or hero crystal shards, which provides a lot more longevity, as some players only care about featured crystals. And it's a really good shift in free to play, because these variants are something you can slowly work your way through, or skillfully work your way through, if you have the roster and access to a huge amount of rewards. Really see a good shift in your roster and then move your way forward, and that's a really good change. So I wanted to touch on that as well. And then the next thing I want to talk about is the Cavalier monthly event, and again, this is just added resources to the game. Now, I have my complaints about the Cavalier monthly, but this does bring recurring accessible tier 5 class catalysts. This plus alliance quest, if you happen to be able to join a higher tier alliance that's pushing for tier 5 class catalysts, which can be reasonably obtained to a degree. But this suddenly makes rank 3 6 stars way more accessible. Before, it was pretty much Act 6 or Abyss of Legends or bust or pay to win. Now, you know, it's slow and it takes time, but it's coming your way. I've personally formed a Cosmic Catalyst from the 20% tier 5 class catalyst we're getting on a monthly basis. I just needed that little bit of push over the edge, and that was massive for me. And then we see extra 6-star shards, 5 stake zones. Overall, it's really just the accessibility of resources. And I know that these quests are a little bit roster specific right now, at least these first 2 months, and that is worth noting. But I want to talk about this massive change, because these rewards on a monthly basis is another form of power creep, but it's also another form of free-to-play accessibility, because we've had so much content stagnation. And here's something that's really awesome about the Cavalier month, is that they're actually making it even more free to play, or they're making it more accessible or more satisfying. So across the board, they've heard that there wasn't like a variety of champions used across the classes, so they wanted to update the buffs in order to really make that more significant. So tech champions will now be able to drain 10% of the defender's max power on a well-timed block if they have an armor up, and this really increases the amount of tech champions who can take advantage of Power Technician. That's massive. Mystic Consumption, I don't like that one. That's really just a nerf to Claire, and it interacts with personal space. So this is actually a nerf, but that's okay. Mystic is probably the best one anyways, because if you just have, honestly, even like a 4-star Sim or Doom or Claire, you could just do crazy things with that node. So that's fine by me. It's really not that big of a deal. Scientific Exploit allows you to place vulnerabilities on the opponent, which is just absolutely massive. You get a lot of crazy extra damage for that. Seeing Red is mutant attackers now reduce the potency of bleed debuffs by 90%. That means 1 point in Coagulate, and you can use any mutant champion for typically the mutant quest, because they typically pair it with Biohazard, and that just makes a huge, like, this is by far the biggest difference in that node, in my opinion, especially since Willpower, Biohazard, it's probably going to be the easiest quest by far, unless they put really crazy defenders there. And then Punishment Glutton, they've changed it to any damaging debuff, which is nice, because previously it was Bleed or Incinerate, and that was very roster limiting. So this is going to be a nice change. Now, don't get me wrong, Bleed is still the primary dot placed by skills, but it's still really nice to have. And then Cosmic Grit, they've changed it from the 4th buff to the 3rd buff, which does make a big difference, because some Cosmic champions have easy access to 2 buffs, but they don't have easy access to 3. So this is really good changes, and this makes it a lot easier and then they've done something here at the end. But what this does is it opens up the roster availability of players, and having that roster availability opened up will allow free-to-play players to tackle this content when they might not have been able to recently. And then they access this rewards. Accessing this rewards helps boost their account over time, and that's really, really good. Now, I know this isn't a lot. It's not like the world's largest crazy free-to-play shift, and I'm not trying to say the game is suddenly, free-to-play dominant, but it's important to talk about. And I know I've touched on pay-to-win mechanics in the past. I wanted to give free-to-play mechanics and these changes some spotlight because it deserves to be acknowledged. So let me know if there's other mechanics you think I've missed. I'm not trying to go over pay-to-win mechanics that have come out recently because we do have Cyber Weekend coming out. That's going to be the biggest pay-to-win mechanic or shift in the game, at least for quite a while. But I'm not trying to touch on that. I'm just really alluding to it. But as always, I hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll talk to you all later. Peace.